Hi, everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRFBets race of the day for Thursday, September the 5th. Race number 9 at Kentucky Downs. We're going 1 mile and 70 yards on the turf. It is the $250,000 Old Friends Stakes. You can get involved in this race and with the sensational racing all meet long at Kentucky Downs with a DRFBets account. Sign up at drf.com/bet. Immediately receive a $100 deposit match. Let's take a look at this field in the Old Friends, and not surprisingly, it is an overflow field. Should be an interesting betting race, Mike, and we'll kick things off with the number 1, Hot Springs, going out for trainer Steve Asmussen, whose Snapper Sinclair pulled off a big upset in the Tourist Mile at Kentucky Downs last week. Hot Springs last time out, I think, might have been compromised by a slow pace up front, but I would have liked to have seen him do some running in the stretch. I wonder if this horse just is not gotten back to his 3-year-old form.
Yeah, I wanted to see him do some running in at least one of his starts this year. I don't really like any of his races so far. You know, we'll see what happens. Obviously, he was pretty good as a 3-year-old. I just haven't seen him take the step forward at 4, even though his figures are slightly better. We'll see what happens, Dan. At a big price, I won't knock him, but I don't like his races so far.
The number 2 is Cullum Road, is one of those typical Mike Maker claims that turn out to be okay. Maker took this horse for $62.5 back on May 31st, 2018. This horse is now graded stakes placed at Kentucky Downs. We'll go back to his race 3 back in the Fort Marcy at Belmont. He was a big price, and this was a very wet turf course. We're going to see him split horses, the number 4 in the Green Silks, and I think this is probably the best that Cullum Road can do, and I think he also really appreciated the give in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he ran fine in this race. Never looked like he was going to win, but he's in that, 3-way photo for second, third, and fourth. Nothing wrong with his performance. He's run well at Kentucky Downs. I think you'll like that about this horse. So that's something to at least consider. We'll see how he does in this race.
The number 3, Mr. Misunderstood, is as honest as the day is long. He has won 12 of 23 lifetime starts. He finished ahead of 3 of these common rivals in his most recent start at Ellis Park. We'll go back to that race right now, and there just wasn't a lot of pace going on in here. Siem Reap had the lead. We see Mr. Cub the 7 beginning to kick, and on the outside in the white cap is Mr. Misunderstood. And all things considered, I thought he ran best of the horses coming out of that race and running back in the Old Friends. He's always a contender.
Yeah, I agree with you that he ran best of the ones active in that race. As a matter of fact, I don't know, he might have run the best race in that race, Dan. He was pretty unlucky wide basically the entire way. I thought he ran well. He's such a rock-solid horse. I could never just dismiss him.
And he goes out for trainer Brad Cox. We have a positive formulator fact to share with you. Over the past 5 years, horses aged 3 and up in restricted, non-graded stakes races going long on the turf, 12 for 30, a $2.60 ROI. The number 5 is Multiplier. I am a big fan of Multiplier. He hasn't won in a long time, but he might have been compromised by a slow pace most recently at Saratoga. They turn into the stretch, and Up the Ante's been on the lead, and Maraud's been chasing him on the outside, and Multiplier had a perfectly fine trip sitting in behind. He's the horse in the pink silks. He's going to grind it out, and he's just going to miss by a nose. I thought that this course had a little bit of give to it, but Multiplier at this point in his career just seems like a horse best used underneath, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He was unlucky there just because the pace was so slow in front of him, but you saw him get the perfect in-out trip from Johnny V. He just missed at the end. He ran well in that race. He had run well, I think, in a couple of his prior turf starts this year, too, for Mott. He needs to set up, and he needs to get there first. He's hard to trust.
At this time last year, the number 5 Catapult was coming off a couple of graded stakes victories and was prepping for an excellent runner-up effort in the Breeders' Cup Mile. What has happened to Catapult in 2019? You could argue he was unlucky in the Kilroe 3 starts back, a race where he was kind of in and among horses until the 3/16 pole, and by the time he got out, Ohio, who controlled a slow pace, was able to hold him off. Then in the Shoemaker Mile, he kind of was wide, but he really didn't kick much. And last time out in the Eddie Reed, he actually relaxed in the early portion of the race. Here he is in the yellow cap and green silks. He usually pulls hard. He relaxed off the pace setter, and he just didn't fire in the stretch. Is it a situation that this horse is off form?
I mean, it looks that way to me. We'll see what happens. Obviously, if he runs his best race, I think he's just going to win. I thought his first two starts this year, the Pegasus World Cup turf and the Kilroe, I thought he ran well in both of those races and was unlucky. His last two starts, I don't know what to say. He hasn't run his race either time. It makes me not want to take him at a short price.
He is cutting back to a mile. Maybe the 1.125 was a little bit too far for him last time out, and he should get covered up in this big field where there might be a little bit of pace. The 6 Get Western could supply that pace. This horse went gate to wire last time out at Ellis Park, but Mike, what an easy lead. They swing into the stretch, and this one went 24-3, 48-1 on the front end, and they ran 1, 2, 3 around the track. There was just no closing going on, and it's hard to imagine a similar trip here.
Yeah, I can't see him getting loose like that on a slow pace and then making it stand up. He did stalk and win 3 starts back. I guess that's a good thing for him. He still has to improve to beat this field, though.
Let's talk a little bit about the number 7, Lamartine. I like the way this horse finished off his race at Churchill Downs 2 starts back, and they ran him in the Warriors Vet most recently at Indiana Grand. This horse was a multiple group winner in his native Brazil, and this was his stateside stakes debut at Indiana, and there just wasn't any pace going on in that race, and he was facing some really good horses. I mean, Real Story ran an excellent second in the Tourist Mile with a 98 buyer. Dot Matrix ran second in the West Point at Saratoga with a 96 buyer. This horse has tactical speed and he fits.
Yeah, that was a really good field he was in last time. Not that he's not facing a good field here, but I think he held his own last time against some good horses. He's a horse to consider at a price in this race.
Master Marion won the Franklin Simpson at Kentucky Downs back in 2017, and then he went away for a while. He ended up going to Royal Ascot, and I wonder if Master Marion's a bit off form. We're going to go back to his 6th place finish in the Poker most recently, and he just really doesn't fire in here. He kind of just is one-paced in the stretch. I realize he had to go wide, and there wasn't a lot of pace running on, but he's going to end up finishing 6th, flattening out in between horses.
Yeah, this is just one of those races where basically the whole field hits the wire together. You can see him just starting to get out finished there at the end. Not his best performance at all. It's only his 2nd start of the year, though, so it feels like he's maybe had some problems this year. I think his good race gives him a look in this race, Dan. I like that he's run well over this turf course before, but he's just got to turn it around a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he's a long shot play in here, but you have to deal with another 3.5-month layoff or so. Yeah. Pretty decent field he was in against. Hembry was sharp at the time. Came back to run second in the Forbidden Apple with a 99 buyer. Flight Time is a horse that was a Group 1 winner in Brazil and then came off a lengthy layoff at Kentucky Downs most recently. He was a horse that you could argue, A, needed the race off the bench, B, didn't get a lot of pace to run into. And when Ken McPeak tinkers with the blinkers, it's usually a good idea.
Yeah, that is true. You know, when I look at his first start of the year there over at Ellis, it looks like typical prep stuff to me. They just, took him back off the pace, put him on the rail, and basically never left it. The pace wasn't fast in front of him. Obviously, he didn't do that much running. His couple of his races in Brazil were pretty good, though, and he had speed in those races.
The number 10 is Choo Choo, and I'm curious to see where Choo Choo is on that Timeform U.S. pace projector. He's more of a mid-pack runner, and we see him in the 3rd flight, going to have to deal with an outside post position. His most recent race was in that Kentucky Downs preview turf back on August the 4th. It was his first race off the layoff. He kind of tried to make a mid-move, I thought, into the teeth of the pace, and he flattened out. I'm willing to give him that race, but he really only has one race on his page that makes him competitive, and that was the 3rd in the San Francisco Mile.
Yeah, he didn't run poorly that day, but he did have a good trip. It seems like the stakes races they put him in have just been too tough for him. I wonder if it's more of the same here.
The tabulator, the 11, should be the speed, stretching out off that 6-furlong dirt race at Thistledown. He's done his best running, however, on synthetic surfaces, and he has a little bit of turf pedigree. Dialed In has been a surprisingly good turf stallion, winning at 18% with his first-time turf runners. The Dam has foaled 1 turf winner. This horse is going to go as fast as he can, as far as he can. I'm a little bit concerned about the distance.
Me too. We'll see what happens. He's a little bit interesting because he's so fast early, but I didn't really want to take him trying to wire this field over this turf course.
And the 9-year-old undrafted is cross-centered in the turf sprint stakes on the big card on Saturday. This would be stretching his distance limitations perhaps a little bit if he runs. We'll go back to the Green Flash handicap at Del Mar. He had no chance in this race. Mr. Vargas is just a really sharp sharp horse right now, and we know how a drafted likes to run. We see him just coming into the picture right now. He's kicking on late for fourth. Considering he's 9 years old, this was a good effort. I think getting back to the East Coast, running in Kentucky on a little bit of a softer turf course would help, and a little bit of pace would help as well, but I think he fits better in sprint distances.
I do too. And, he's not as good as he used to be, but he still finishes with interest in his races. If the thing falls apart, maybe he comes running at the end.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Old Friends Stakes. I just feel if Catapult runs his race, he's just better than these horses. He's 3-1 on the morning line. Something tells me he's going to be a lot shorter than that at post time, and that makes me a lot less interested in playing him. But Master Marion for Wesley Ward interests me as a horse coming off a bit of a layoff that likes the surface, so I'm going to probably lean on the 5 and 8, but you're going to go with a big price, the 9 Flight Time. And again, we've seen this with Kenny McPeak, second off the layoff, adding blinkers.
Yeah, it's interesting. The 5 and the 8 are my second and third picks in here. They're the other two horses for me. I'm actually very interested in Master Marion if he can run his best race. I just wanted to take a shot with Flight Time because I just feel like they were prepping him last time. They never really asked him to do anything in there, and now they show up in a stakes race with them blinkers going on. When you watch his races in Brazil, not only did he have good speed, he was very game in the stretch of those races. So I wonder if we just see a different horse this time.
20-1 on the morning line for Mike's top selection, the 9 Flight Time. He's going 9-5-8. I'm going 5-8 in the $250,000 Old Friend Stakes, race number 9 at Kentucky Downs on Thursday. You can play the race, obviously, with the DRFBets account. You can access free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRFBets.com. Approximate post time for the Old Friends, 4:48 Central. Good luck.